area that you've got in front of the station with the buildings around this central space. I think that's a good design.
The one question for me is usable space outdoors. You know, what I'm not seeing here is people spilling out, except with maybe the library, people spilling out of buildings for a public event. You know, you could have that potential back here if we don't put a road through, but we think we will. But there's not, I don't see indoor outdoor except over at the library. And maybe you would need it, but.
But if you made the police station 2 stories, you might free up some space.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point.
And it'll be protected quiet space, it'll be with some of the quiet space on the side.
I also am generally of the opinion, because I'm very aware of what the size of the library fund is now and what it will be when we start to build, that that we should have an option for underground parking because it would free up more space. And in this one, I mean, freeing up space along Station Lane might enhance a little more park space over to the right. It's not going to make much difference down near the train station, but if the police parking were under the police building, then you would definitely free up the open space you're talking about.
Steve, if you move the library a little bit south, would that help out to accomplish what you're talking about?
Well, it's just, here's what I'm struggling with, is the library side is really low density, it'd be really easy to do indoor outdoor, I get it. The left side of the plan is really dense. And it's kind of circled in by parking with a little tiny bit that we haven't taken yet, but we're about to take it to put a road out there.
Right.
So it starts to look like the architecture of the plan, not the site plan. Like that's always the natural friction in doing sites, is who drove it, the landscape person or the
And
architect.
believe me, we wrestled
You
with
guys are
that
starting,
back and forth.
yeah. You just get
Yeah,
in there and
no,
take it
definitely.
straight, yeah. So that's just what I'm looking, and it's Atherton, and so it'd be so nice to have the building's courtyard be green. I mean,
Well,
not lean green, but green.
One thing I think we want to get clarity on is, I walked away last week realizing I still wasn't clear whether we should show a one-story option or not. This is the only option that is showing the footprints when they're all one-story. If we want to decide today that what can be 2 stories should be 2 stories in all schemes, then I think we can take another look at the administrative side of this plan and look at how to create more of a indoor-outdoor function kind of space.
Can we ask the police department, do you guys have a strong opinion about 1 versus 2 stories?
No, I don't think so. It depends on how it's laid out. We could deal with either one of them. You know, there are some advantages and disadvantages to both, I think.
Yeah. And we'd already identified the likely spaces in the program that would make the upstairs in the police building. So we know in our 2-story schemes, we're already showing stuff that we know is workable.
George is the other big driver.
Right.
Because if city manager's upstairs, finance goes
Right,
upstairs,
that's
a
what
lot
we
of
talked
people
about.
can go upstairs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, in our 2-story
And
schemes.
in some places, council's upstairs, but my gut is that doesn't work in Atherton.
No.
Yeah.
In our two-story schemes, we were keeping all of the counter functions and the immediate adjacent functions on the 1st floor. But all of, finance and administration and some of the spaces we've identified in the police program, that was what was gonna form the 2nd story. So we already have a pretty good handle on what would go upstairs and how it, works the footprint differently. I think the decision point on this one is there any validity forcing an all 1-story scheme? And if there's not, then I think we need to take another look at this scheme as to how to massage some of the building footprint.
Do we have any recorded feedback from the community workshop on how the public would feel about 2-story buildings?
I don't remember hearing
recall.
anything significant that was pointing in one direction or another.
So my vote
No
is,
high-rises.
because we're showing both of the other options, the administration buildings as 2-story, I personally would vote to have the police be 2-story here and put the parking underground, at least the police parking, some of the parking underground, so that we can open up more open space in this area where around the buildings.
Yeah, and this central, you want to see this central space look less like circulation and more like usability.
Yeah,
Less, I mean, the walking paths are helpful because it's like a campus,
Right.
you're gonna walk
Right.
across it, but it doesn't, how do you
So,
settle into that space?
if we are able to reduce building footprint, then it seems like what we would wanna do is kinda concentrate the buildings back a little bit from that center space, that we created more of a forecourt arrival kind of indoor-outdoor zone for essentially the council chambers and some of the, so you could have city functions in front of that complex.
You would have your multi-purpose room somewhere there,
Right.
and that's where you.
And that's the other thing, I think if we were to do this scheme, I think I might shift the multipurpose room from being with the library footprint and move it across the pedestrian
It might even be where you
zone.
have your big circle.
That's what I'm kind of thinking, that we would rework this to put the public function spaces, the council chambers in the multipurpose room. Now, that's a question though for the library committee, because one of the things that you had mentioned before with that multipurpose room is you hold reading events, storytelling events, and you wanted it to be contiguous or immediately adjacent to the library, is that right?
Mhm.
Because that would kind of be an
Like
issue
it's
if I
a-
tried
the
to move it,
well,
yeah.
A, if we want the library to pay for it, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
And B, the library will be engaged in programs, and want to use that room for some of those programs. So I think it's an advantage to
Is
have it.
there a reason that council chambers can't be,
No,
At the
it's the same
library?
size as the,
It's-
But what I mean, if you
It
had
has
a-
been slightly contemplated, but.
because if you had a
it's kind of
library,
been
and at the end of that is a multi-purpose room with a accordion wall that leads into council chambers, which could be expanded to double
Mhm.
for a super event,
Mhm.
but most of the time it's just split
It's
off.
more that, those are the more public spaces.
Those are the public spaces, and those are the ones that want to be amenable to indoor, outdoor, where city manager's office, please do not.
No.
right,
But
so.
that's where you open it up, you have the big civic event.
One thing that we did note is that the size of this building is essentially your multipurpose room program. And if we added a little bit to get some support services here for storage and restrooms that were proper to the multipurpose room, where we're saying that the city council chambers is being used as library, what it could really be is that multipurpose function. We could put the council chambers directly across the cul-de-sac from it, create kind of a forecourt function space between those two, and then rework the size and the orientation of the rest of the administrative and police building. Because this is really meant to orient, the whole idea is that this is meant to orient off of this central spine and make it pedestrian, flank the buildings. So you're right, what we're missing is kind of where do you have that indoor-outdoor function space? If we flanked the most public functions that have the most visitors, off of the Asheville Road cul-de-sac, and then work the rest of the police and admin around it, I think that then you would really have an activated space potential. So that could be how we help this.
So you're gonna put it right here?
So I was gonna put council chambers there, keep this as the multi-purpose portion
Okay.
of the library, and then, yeah, this would be like the more activated.
Okay.
George?
That's cool. I mean, it's gonna bounce right off our road, if we bring our road in,
Exactly,
you know, it's gonna tie, and then by default, what's gonna happen is Asheville's gonna become a pretty major, this is
right,
gonna be
that's
the
like your gateway then, because you
Yeah.
put all your public facing stuff kind of right off of that.
It's okay. I think that's
And
okay.
where's the council chambers go?
Council chambers.
Flanks the circle on that side.
Yeah.
Where the CMF.
Where the
Yeah,
CMF is now.
Yeah,
Taking
yeah,
that.
you know,
Flipping.
council chambers over here,
Got it.
multi-purpose function here. This is where you develop kind of your gateway forecourt.
Mhm.
Road goes through, this
Everything
gets
spills out into
compacted, exactly.
I mean, what it,
How does that work
I
with the
mean, I-
existing buildings and keeping,
You probably-
keeping some
no,
business?
you can't keep us.
This one does not really, you might be able to keep some of the building and public works buildings in place while you're doing this and get a little bit of
That's
swing
all.
space, but that's
Trailers.
it. Yeah,
We tried that. Remember that?
Trailers.
Did
are
they-
They're still here.
Trailers.
Yeah.
You mean,
Oh, we did?
We did it during the.
with the Blue Ribbon Task Force, I mean, the Town Center Task Force?
I mean,
No, we did it with,
Town Center. We looked
right,
at
but
moving-
not with
moving out.
trailers, but moving
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
off-site. But I think that trailers on-site is not something we actually looked at.
Yeah, I don't remember
We
doing a
didn't-
number out there.
No, we didn't do trailers on-site, we did the analysis of moving, like leasing the building down the street or something.
you can phase it so that you don't have to move everybody out, meaning you could do the library last so that that stays untouched. while you're moving the people out of police and admin. And then when they move in, you have the library people who can maybe move into, you know, temporary quarters that you were using for city admin staff while its building gets torn down and renovated. So you don't have to decant everybody, but you will always have someone who has to bring temporary quarters on site for this scheme.
I'm not quite sure, if we were to bring Ashfield around, to connect through where the little horseshoe is today, that gets rid of this little parking lot down here,
You can
which
still do
means that.
some, right?
You could still squeeze some in, it just depends on your building, how we can
Well,
get
I
it
guess
in.
where I'm going with that though, you virtually lose all the parking that's accessible if you were to come in on Ashfield Road. So then what would be the purpose of actually arriving on via Ashfield Road? You couldn't park your vehicle to even go to the library or drop off, you know, anything at the town.
That's an excellent
I don't have
point.
to-
What we could look at is putting parking on street parking
Right.
around here. What that does though is it's gonna not really give you a back, both sides of the buildings are gonna
It's
be,
not a back, you don't have as much of a,
you don't have a back of house to your
Right.
buildings.
right.
But, you know, we can,
Everything has to be more carefully screened.
we can
But
squeeze
if
in.
you put the police parking, secure parking underneath,
Mhm.
then it doesn't become as difficult a problem to solve.
Yeah, you're gonna end up with underground parking.
Yeah, I think you would.
So, two things. I think you could move the Ashfield Road around through what is currently this little parking lot and
Right.
preserve the parking that's close to the city manager's office, which the number of parking spaces there are about the number of actually created parking spaces we currently have around the building. But in my opinion, there also ought to be an underground entrance there, where, and probably means there should be an exit from the underground onto Station Lane, where you could push more parking.
So a couple,
Particularly staff parking,
couple questions.
but we don't have to do that in this proposal if you don't want, but
Well, that's what I want to get to, but Elizabeth, go ahead.
Well, you know, I was doodling when he was talking about bringing Asheville Road. I mean, I think you can kind of snake it almost around the perimeter. You want to keep that heritage tree, you know, you do the little horseshoe curvature, but that would, you know, help the Asheville Road people wanting to get onto Fair Oaks and entry coming out there. But I guess I just want to make one access point so that it brings you into
Well,
the
we might wanna go
there.
to number 3.
Well, I think we've got to, but I mean, they want to have three options.
Yeah, and I
yeah.
want to kind of
I
clarify,
agree with
I
that. I
think
agree with what you said.
Leaving it all one story as an option is good. I think we should just leave this as all one story as an option, because the other two do have the two-story options. And if people say,
if
you know,
people like this one,
Yeah,
but
I
want
just-
it, but make all the comments you made, then
Yeah.
that's what we would refine.
Yeah.
We could treat it that way. What I do think that we should look at though, based on your comments, is really looking at where the city council chambers is compared to where the multipurpose room might be on the library. So that we really do have a reason for how we're clustering the most public spaces. So I think the way we have them now might not be ideal, so I think we will take another look at that, so our footprint might shift and look a little different, so that we rationalize that better. But I think if everyone kind of agrees with Elizabeth's point, I think we can otherwise leave this generally as it is to test these ideas.
We're bringing the street through.
Right.
And we will bring the street through.
Yeah.
So those two things, I think, are what we would look at. We would continue the street through from Ashfield, and we would look at exactly where we place the city council chamber and the multipurpose space, so that they have a really good sense of place.
and then creating a main entrance, I guess. I have a problem with the station lane being our main entrance. I just think that it needs to be further down Fair Oaks, and then that would come in to show the there, you know, one destination.
So maybe what we can do is,
Because I think
the
that-
entrance to police parking comes off of Station Lane,
Yeah.
and when we bring Ashfield Road through, that becomes like the main gateway in. It brings you in to the cul-de-sac and the parking and the pedestrian area.
Yeah,
But it doesn't give you the
You can
connection.
even-
You
doesn't
can,
connect
you
out
can
to
put
the
parking here that could become the front of your building.
Mhm.
Where's that?
But
On Nashville?
if,
Well, I just think that we're just gonna make Ashfield like a little, lane, circuitous lane,
I think that's right.
you know, rather than
If you wanna
having
save
that
the
be.
trees, yeah.
Because otherwise, you're gonna be bringing
Which I think is
all the
fine.
main focus of, that they're there in, from Ashfield, which is what number 3 does.
So you were saying earlier though that you wanted the arrival point to be where? You didn't like the arrival point being on Station Lane.
I mean, I think,
Well,
so I
it
think
just
the
needs to
thing,
be more of a drive around
that's number
plaza.
3.
yeah, the arrival point
That's
on
number
this
3.
scheme was intended to be
That's
only
from
pedestrian.
Ashfield.
Yeah.
So the idea was that you flank some parking on both sides of the site, so that if someone were to wander in from Ashfield or from Station Lane, or, either end of Station Lane, they could park, and then your main entry was meant to be, your arrival point was meant to be all pedestrian. You come at it from either end, your main arrival point was only pedestrian. So so that's quote, your gateway is that pedestrian center. So this scheme was really trying to address it that way, that you had to come in.
Fertilla Valley's kind of like that, isn't it?
Well, a
You
little.
park out the corner
Yeah, yeah.
and then you kind
Then you
of find
come
your way
in, right.
into the middle,
And
yeah.
so that was really the big idea
Yeah.
here. So I think, just to kind of summarize, we're gonna bring Ashfield Road through, it will be kind of meandering. We'll look at then really, how the building footprint's gonna work best with council chambers and multipurpose room having a better relationship around the center. And, if we bring the lane through, we'll look at what makes the most sense for the entrance to the police secure parking. So we'll make those refinements, and then I think let the scheme sort of speak for itself to see what comments we get. Does that sound okay?
So this is kind of the pedestrian focused plan.
This is the pedestrian focus, the pedestrian center.
Yeah.
It's the main street.
This is keep all the cars on the edges, have all the people in the middle, and that's where you enter the buildings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so, yeah, I mean, if you go into European towns that have closed off their old centers, that's what you get, and that's how it is.
Yeah.
I've got a question, maybe Mike can answer. In all 3 of these proposals, the railroad station is moved in some way.
Yes, it is now.
It is, and I wonder how Caltrans will feel about that.
Don't know yet.
Well, we gotta find out,
We will.
because they don't like us very well. And they may say it's gonna cost Godzillions amount of dollars to move that railroad station.
Well,
You'd probably get along better with Mike Scanlon.
I mean, we
Talk to
haven't,
him.
explored that. I think we're getting close now to have some.
we are getting to the
some
point
concrete
where,
things to share with them.
exactly.
But, the station, basically, it's
It's a
a
building.
pad.
It's a
Yeah,
pad.
it is,
It's a
it's
pad.
just a pad.
You pick it up.
Yeah.
Pick it up,
Move it.
pick it up and move it.
Yeah.
But the background music behind that is Caltrain has already done a lot of design work to remove the holdout station name for Atherton. I mean, what it means is, until the tracks are widened and some fences are put down the middle, one train coming south has to hold out of the station until the north-facing train leaves.
Mhm.
So it's called a holdout station. And until that gets done, we're not gonna ever have people back here, or electricity or not.
Yes, and that, they have indicated that is
Big
in.
problem.
It's a big problem, but that is in line to get done because of South San Francisco, as well as there's another one in Brisbane, I think. There are 2 others that they're taking care of. I mean, it's gonna be done with the electrification project.
We wanted to approach them after we were zeroing in on direction, so it wasn't what if. So, we wanted to get through the neighborhood meetings and have a sense of, is the scheme selected? I mean, I think we actually have a better sense now that if we want Station Road to work the way we're showing it, based on the advice of our traffic consultant, every scheme needs to move the station down, unless we don't,
Unless we bring in an entry
Right.
out here.
right, instead, if he goes for that.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
can ask him to.
Yeah. So, okay,
Like this one.
so option 3. Option 3, we've termed kind of Main Street, because the idea was to take Ashfield Road through and connect it to Station Lane and make a T. And then treat the buildings like they're, little individual buildings off of a main street where you can park right in front of the buildings, go do your business, come back out and drive on your way. We were saving some of the major heritage trees, so there's a big island in the middle of it. But each building has its own individual entrance. We are saving the council chambers in this scheme and reusing it as a council chambers, renovating it to continue its use. We keep the courtyard, it opens off of Maple. You know, it's all two-story buildings, again, with appropriate program that could go upstairs in each case. And all of the staff and secure parking is essentially behind, the police and admin buildings, and opening off of Fair Oaks Lane with its own little driveway. So those are the big ideas here, and Matthew, maybe you can talk about any of the road moves or tree issues of this one, because this one does actually blast out a couple heritage trees.
One unhappy neighbor when you move the courtyard.
Yeah, you gotta put the courtyard on the other side.
I think
Yeah, you
that's
We can move it down.
terrible, yeah.
I agree.
This is the closest to what we have right now.
Yes,
with-
it
With
is.
the library being moved.
Yes, it is, and that's kind of the other aspect of this one is as we were developing it, it's like, well, you know, it really kind of mimics, you know, hopefully what people liked about what is now, but with newer, better buildings, a little more rationale to it. So, yeah, you know, it keeps buildings where there's buildings, it keeps streets where there's streets.
How come
you
it's
know.
so linear? Because I thought last time there was some feeling about a circular courtyard in the middle and the buildings would
I think it's more
respond to
because
it
of a
and they would echo
notion of,
each other and
I
blah,
think
blah,
it's
blah.
because of a notion of a main street, that you're
Uh-huh.
really driving down a main street and you can pull off and park and all the buildings are lined up
Cars.
along it.
This feels so boring.
It's terrible.
It just
And
doesn't
the
feel
other thing
exciting.
is
It
that
doesn't
there's
feel
no,
embracing.
yeah,
not.
synergy
Yeah.
with each other, you know.
It's a main street town model. You're driving down the street, you're parking at your businesses, you're running in doing your business and you're leaving. It's a pretty utilitarian treatment of buildings as if you're in
Do you
more
have
of
another
a.
version that you can show us that it's round and it sort of feels cohesive there in the middle?
Yeah, but guys, because I know what you're talking about, the site is linear, so you kind of have to offset that. a
Yeah, I
little
mean, the
bit.
reason
Like
we
the
did
donut
the more, you know, I mean, the reason we looked at, you know, the option 2 is there are a lot of trees in the middle. And trying to this is really the only way you can get the street through the middle this way.
You can,
I mean, you can detour to the left, right?
yeah, you can do something,
If you push the police and police and everybody else to the left, you could do it, I bet.
yeah.
Yeah, put the police
You
to
can-
the north.
And it doesn't need to be straight up, head up with Ashfield. It could be off-center to the left a little bit.
You could turn the police station perpendicular, put some parking over there.
Yes. That's
We
it.
had one
But
like
I- but
that
I
too.
Elizabeth's got the one that we were, I think.
I think you
both
should
got fired up
switch
last time.
the administrative functions of the police, so the police shields the rest more from the,
Well, now the
Right.
reason the police is down here is a cost consideration that running lines back and forth to the communications tower for all their dispatch function, this is
I see.
this is the only one where we tried to actually consider one of those
Cost.
kinds of adjacencies. You know, I mean, we consider cost all of them,
Oh, my goodness.
but this is one of those ones where it's like, you know, if we're gonna start putting building down in this little corner, the most practical building to put there from a cost perspective is the police.
That, in the scope of things, that's peanuts.
Could be.
I guess you're right, yeah.
It, you know, it doesn't need to be, I mean, we looked at this scheme, configuring the center all different ways, wrapping those buildings on the administrative side in whole kinds of different configurations. We must have like, I don't know, 15 overlays. And it's just, trying to figure out.
It'd be lovely to see this version with an underground garage, with the building pulled back to create a real arrival in the middle. And that the buildings echo each other across that arrival point.
So you can put the police station north, like you're saying, and put underground parking
Elizabeth's
there.
got it right here, so it's that one. Do you mind holding it?
I'm embarrassed.
No, that's right.
Beautiful.
I'm embarrassed.
It's that. It's like a Klingon spaceship. It's
You
like-
know, it's Apple, it's Apple.
It's Apple.
It's Apple.
Oh, wow.
Say,
Yeah,
Let
no,
me see.
it is not, it's those are driveways and those are crescent buildings
Yeah.
around it. But, the,
And in this version,
Redwood City's is gorgeous. They did their town hall. It's kind of it may be faceted, but it's lovely.
yeah, faceted.
Yeah.
and in this version, the library is where the temporary buildings are now. Is that gonna be too
Correct.
close to the train tracks?
That's
I just
correct.
think that we've got 4 distinct
But not
buildings
enough.
instead of, you know, the
That's what we were trying
flexibility of
before.
space, the
Wow.
synergy of space,
This is so
of
cool.
use. I thought that that's one of the things that we were really
It's not gonna
wanting
do
to
it there.
have, so we have flexibility and,
They
you know,
wanna-
shared spaces wherever possible, and the economy of scale and things like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's,
That's where we run into trouble.
I mean, if anything,
These are the
This
two sides.
building
This is D.
needs to be a focal point, and then other buildings
So
around it.
not.
I think it's a valid offer,
That one we can-
so you'll see how much people hate what we currently have.
People will say, oh, this looks nice, because
my
it feels
biggest obstacle.
familiar.
I know.
You right?
No,
Well,
but I think
that's
they don't
how it
like
is.
it. I think they don't like
You
it.
know,
That's my-
they won't even know, they'll say, oh,
Yeah,
yeah, this
that's
looks
been
nice, I like this, and I like the accessibility,
Just-
I can get right in and out, you know, because
So then we can do that.
Used to
If
be
we-
they-
We don't have to
I
worry
think
about
we
that.
talked about.
I think we're also still driving through a parking lot down here,
Yeah.
where the word station lane is.
Yeah.
Right.
Just like it does today.
Like it does now.
which I
Yes,
don't
it's
wanna
what we
do.
have right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
not at all. And the
I see
courtyard,
s-
yeah.
It does create more parkland by the reorganization, which is nice.
I think
It's the
Steve,
Klingon
you're
battle
just-
cruiser.
I think that's where those things start. I think it's lovely, it's got a lot of flow to it, you kind of arrive into it.
What's
It's
the-
better than this.
What's the challenge with the round building?
Well, we were trying to, there were trees there we thought we were really trying to protect, which really didn't leave a lot of positions for the buildings on the south side. But Matthew's telling me I can take out another one.
The tree, we can even go outside, but the deodars right out front here seem seminal.
They
Mhm.
are seminal,
And
and I
then
think they
these-
should, you know, be
Exact.
kind of the, you know,
Anchor.
foundation,
Good
the anchor.
Yeah.
There's an oak, you can see it right through this window.
Right.
If we have your blessing to take that out, we can just continue the sweep of this
Phil?
building.
That one, right, you know that one?
That's his first answer to everything.
I
Nope.
know them all by name.
What's that one? Henry or?
Oh, my God.
Agatha?
Because there's no, I mean, it just kind of gets back to this right here.
Yeah,
And you see this is all wide open here. We can
Yes.
do your art easily or whatever.
yeah.
But from an architectural perspective, what's the challenge?
Well, Rose, why don't you, what,
Well, it's just my own prejudice. I just can't envision our town having a semicircular building.
Yeah, it didn't feel right
You know,
for your
it's
town
just
to us either.
architecturally, I mean, I think that if we had proposed this in architecture school, we would have flunked out. I mean, it's one of those contrived shapes. Now, you can create that feel, you know, with the round
Yeah.
circular driveway or something, but
Right.
the actual round building.
No, the
itself-
buildings don't have to be curved. They can be faceted,
Yeah.
they can array around the circle.
We could have a trellis that arcs around. You
It could
could
be
have a
3
line of
rectangular
trees.
buildings that have
Right.
the
I mean, I
corners
know
coming
the concept
together.
of
Right.
that, but just the,
Yeah.
the
it's like the
thought of
Holiday
circular-
Inn in Los Angeles, it's a round building, and all your rooms are kind of.
We'll test it first with the council chambers, and you're all in this.
There's a whole line, run for the roundhouse, and leave a living for me here.
But I think all these concepts are a good, you know, they provide a good groundwork for talking points.
Yeah, I
You're
mean,
gonna end up mixing and matching. a
we are
lot.
gonna end up mixing and matching, I guarantee it, because there are elements of each that are more desirable than others, and there's potential to mix and match a lot of things.
Absolutely.
You know, part of it was trying to have them grouped in such a way that created distinction. So that you could really you could really know if what you're getting back is a valid comment and not just muddled with everything else that was kind of like it. So I guess my question here is, you know, this was an attempt, I mean, if we hadn't had to save those trees initially, we probably just made a T and lined up the buildings on either side to really be a street. So it kind of is, you know, we're getting away from the notion of a Main Street concept and what we're discussing, and I'd say we're moving more toward a vehicular courtyard kind of concept, a circle, you know, a town center vehicular plaza, like, you know, kind of like Concord's or kind of like Sonoma, you know, that there's a square, you drive around it, buildings are arrayed around it, and, you know, we can do this probably a little more loosely or gracefully than a big square. That square is not appropriate here. But I think what we're moving away from is, we're moving back to something more like this, but we're not arraying the buildings this way, we're gonna flank them. And really, it's more, we really wanna not have a Main Street option, we wanna have more of a town square option.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah. So that traffic goes through.
Yes.
But you
Yeah.
circulate
Yes.
it's a
around.
big rotary.
Right,
Yeah.
It could be a-
that could work, yeah.
It could be a rotary or think of the Sanford
Right.
Quad. You know, you come in there and it's
Yeah.
just
I think-
T-drop.
Well, it's
Yeah.
kind of what we have, except it creates a
Different
circular
shape.
pattern.
Yeah.
rather than
I think it's more
just-
welcoming with that circular rather than.
I agree with that.
And you could still make Ashfield have a little, you know, access point, but it would not be the main entrance.
Well,
Are we?
Oh,
I
it's
think
the
we
main
should
one
in the
into it,
proposal.
Yeah.
This could be the, you know, you could
Is
do
that,
this.
that the one,
Yeah.
it would still be that way?
One thing this does is it sets you up for a very nice geometry, and I can talk with the traffic engineer and
Right.
see, then you come in here, you got your big
Right.
aha moment, your
Yeah.
wow bang, you come into a green space, these buildings flank it on either side.
And then you
Mhm.
go over
Slide
to
this up,
parking.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And we can make a really nice gateway through here, and we could discreetly locate
Right.
parking on either side,
Right.
back
There's a
that
big
way.
fountain in the middle of the
No.
circle. or-
In the middle of, so
Train-
yeah.
train
halfway
station.
between the
Train
trees.
station stays where
And the
it
location
is.
of the the oak we took down, we put it.
So would you
Not
close
close
off
station.
Station Lane in front of the,
Yeah, what would we do
in front of,
You could just close off Station Lane.
Uh-huh.
You could actually, if you came in the middle, could move around the circle and get out the other end, you could
Yeah.
close Station
Yeah,
Lane.
because your kiss and drop circulation
Yeah.
would go like this,
Right,
and you come back out.
and then there's just parking on either side, but
Right,
you're not trying to get back out. Let's do that one.
okay.
Yeah, I
Can
think
I-
that's,
Can I make a comment on option 3? What I actually like about it, and I'm thinking, you know, I know you're creating the central core now, and probably, you know, putting all the buildings around the central core, but I'm thinking the concept of having this big outdoor space for outdoor events that George mentioned.
mhm.
I'm wondering if pushing the library in option 3 toward the middle of the lot, along that border, would create more of an opening to that entire land or the park for others, rather than just, you know, right now when you put it right next to the council chambers, it closes this back
No, I
area
think
off.
what you're saying is probably where I would go, actually, is if we talk about, we're able to get a street in here and we kind of split these two buildings to give you a way into this sort of organizing central area, I would do the same thing over here, so it also gives you a gateway into the park.
Okay.
And that you have opportunities then to place library program that gives you indoor-outdoor connection and feel back to the council chambers and to
Yeah,
hold
just
events.
tied in, because a lot of the concepts cut it off, the park is just a
Right.
separate entity.
Right, so I think that if we are successful in this concept with our traffic engineer, and we close off the station lane, in this scheme, then I would create sort of similar gateways with buildings flanking either side, so that you kind of had your arrival and parking, and then you had your event and garden. So one is more pedestrian focused, one is more arrival and
Yeah.
vehicular focused.
Okay.
One
Yeah.
is business, one is
Yeah.
leisure.
Exactly,
Yeah.
And
exactly.
still being able to put some parking close to the building.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
you can flank all around this in
Yeah.
different locations.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Ashfield would still be an access road, but a minor access road.
No, it will
No, it's
be,
the
it'll
main
take you
road.
right to the circle, and you can
Okay.
circulate around and out Station Road or out that way. It'll be a main organizer, now there are three, actually what I like about this too is there are approaches from all
Right.
three sides.
so
The
it's
circle moves you around,
So.
yeah, it's nice,
It makes traffic, I mean, it makes the automobile the center.
yes, it does, it does,
It's
and
okay.
it does, and it
It
doesn't.
does, but
Yeah.
it makes it more pleasant than
But
this
you don't
design.
enter through a sea of parking. So
Right.
you're not parking in a parking
Well,
lot.
you will
Yeah,
have, you
that's
have
what I
parking
mean.
right here.
What, yeah.
You
driving
could have,
around
you know, for staff.
Yeah, and this will be heavily buffered,
Right,
but you'll have a
You
gateway
can hide it, you
landscape.
can hedge it.
You can
Yeah.
hedge it, you can
Right.
build walls, whatever.
and you can
Yeah.
enclose police parking on the other side and hide it as well.
I think with what Mike said about the streets and serving the ingress and egress, you can't help but be auto-centric. I mean, it's gonna be car-centric, unless you start cutting off streets, so that's how
the
you
big
manage that.
question. The big question, that's the big question. You got parking lots on the outside, you walk in,
Yeah,
or you're gonna bring cars right to the front
Yeah.
door,
Right.
which is more opportunity.
and that's the question. You know,
Yeah,
how do we,
that's
how
the
we wanna
central-
live? Mike?
Well, the one, what you guys are talking about, the one benefit to me of that is that it is car-centric, however, I do
Yes.
think it may discourage some of the cut-through.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yes,
Because it's not gonna be
Because
convenient
you
for the
can do
cut-through.
it, but it's not convenient.
It's not gonna be
So
convenient.
I think it answers concerns of the neighbors, like they don't wanna be stuck and trapped and have to get onto El Camino in a dangerous way. So it doesn't hinder them, but it doesn't invite, you know, oh, I'm gonna cut through because there's traffic, you know,
But-
zoom, zoom, zoom.
But the key to that is closing off the north part of
Yes.
Station Lane.
Yes.
You leave that open, that's gonna
Right.
continue to be a
Yeah.
cut through. And that was gonna be my comment on the, actually applies to option 2 and 3, but more to 2, is that the way you have parking, most of the parking, you're basically parking on the road.
Right,
And you're
I like
introducing
that.
a lot of conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vehicle
Yeah.
bikes, vehicle pits,
Yeah,
and it's not a good idea.
yeah.
So by closing off the north end of Station Lane and that locked up version there,
Yeah.
does it make that whole train crossing, Lloyden Park area more pedestrian friendly, do you think, or,
Yeah.
I mean, does it make it safer?
Ultimately,
It's definitely safer, because there's
Yeah.
not 4 things feeding into it
Mhm.
right there.
And also it eliminates that, that weird intersection.
Yeah.
There's a-
You can get rid of the stop sign.
yeah,
Mhm.
I think, I like that.
Yeah, the stop would be
idea.
further up where the new entrance would be.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Can you
So
also,
we'll still continue Station Lane up here.
on that end, yeah,
No, over by Maple,
by Maple.
you're closing that off?
No.
No, good.
North
Still
end.
The
continuing.
issue is, does it run parallel to the right of way, or, you know, we're setting up this geometry.
Well, I think it'd be really nice to have a really good, nice park area here
Well,
and continue, you know, so that this is more, like someone was saying, business oriented, parking, you drive in, arrival. This becomes more
Yes.
function oriented and then more park oriented, so you keep the road out here on that end.
Storage.
I mean, that was just the thought there.
Building underground storage.
That people, so people don't have to worry if they're going back and forth or they're going to the park, if they've got to cross it really again.
It's too expensive just for storage.
But this would be-
We'll just make a giant storage building in the park.
Yeah.
Later,
That ain't gonna
10 years from now,
That's
they'll-
illegal.
that'll
Why don't
be
you
the
put
prime.
some-
So when you have a traffic circle like that,
But just cut this.
your entrance points don't have to be exactly opposite each other, do they?
No,
that's the
that's the
beauty of the
advantage
whole
of it.
traffic circles, you can bring in all these
Yeah.
different legs. and
So
you
it's
don't
not a
have
problem to bring in Station Lane then to the east and
Nope.
have the Fair Oaks entrance on the north?
Nope,
I grew up by one of these. It's, you know, it's,
I love them in France. That's how they do like almost every intersection, it's fabulous.
The roundabouts.
Oh yeah, it's great, especially when you're lost. No, I gotta read those signs again. You
I
go
know,
around
one of
all
our
day long.
residents who is an expert on roundabouts,
Gary.
Gary.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Can you, as a hybrid, you have you have one that's all one story.
Correct.
The other two are all 2-story.